You're all for here. And it's interesting that you said something, Mr. Davis, that I find that I relate to, and I can see it even again tonight, and you hear it from members of the committee as well. But I've been here 18 months as well. And the typical pattern of how this issue with the investigation of the VA and looking out for our veterans and making sure they get the health care that we promised them when they fought for our liberty and freedom. And typically, a panel comes in, and you reference this, and tells us unbelievably shocking stories. That, and back to your comment, Dr. Head, that are so shocking and they're so disappointing. They're disappointing to me as an American, horribly disappointing to me as representing veterans in my district, 54,000 of them in Indiana, horribly disappointing. And nothing celebratory about it, just shocking. And I think every time I come to these hearings, I want so much for a panel to say, okay, we've turned the corner. You know, we've drilled down, we've rooted out the bad actors, we've turned the corner, and now we can hit a reset button, and we have a bright future, and we can promise our fellow Americans and our veterans we have a bright future. But again, tonight, you know, we're going to sit here, and Representative Walz alluded to this as well. You're going to walk out of here. There's going to be another VA panel. There's been dozens of VA panels that are going to come in and give us two answers. Either that you're not telling the truth, or they simply don't have the answers to all the questions that we're going to ask based on your testimony. And that's going to happen again tonight. And if it doesn't happen tonight, I will be absolutely shocked. But, you know, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of high-ranking members of the VA that come in here and have really absolutely said nothing. I guess my question to all of you, but specifically Dr. Mitchell, because the Phoenix facility has kind of been at the apex of this whole kickoff, this urgent reaction time, and one of the things that has floored me is the lack of urgency on the part of the VA that there's a 5-alarm fire and nobody's rushing to put it out. I'm thinking if I was in the Phoenix VA and I was responsible for any of the stuff that's been going on in the Phoenix VA, that the minute this hit the fan nationally, I would be looking and trying to figure this out double time and make sure that my facility is the standard and that we've raised the standard and that we've reset the record and we are an example for the rest of the country. In the 3 months that this has been under the scrutiny of the American people, and the American people have stood up and said they will not tolerate this. This committee has said we're not going to tolerate this either. We're going to drill this down and root out these bad actors to where we can provide the best health care to our veterans. But have you seen anything, Dr. Mitchell, in the last 3 months in Phoenix that says, wow, what a turnaround. They got the message. People have been fired. They've removed these people. There's a ton of accountability and there's transparency because of the American people demanding accountability. Have you seen that in the last 3 months in Phoenix? Any kind of turnaround?
The turnaround I've seen has to do with scheduling. And a consult. I've actually, because the backlogs have been reduced, I've actually put in a consult with a patient, and they've gotten a phone call from the VA during my appointment with the appointment time for the consult. They've certainly done tremendous work getting the veterans processed. The problem is they only fixed the problem that was in the media. They haven't fixed the patient care problems, the hidden mental health delays, although they're certainly working on that for the psychiatry department. But it boils down to there's still administrators there who refuse to address nursing retaliation that was directly impeding care for ill patients in the emergency room. There was actually a meeting where 5 or 6 of the full-time physicians told the chain of command this, and they said flat out, we will not investigate the backlash against Dr. Mitchell.
Well, and we had the Inspector General in here a couple of weeks ago who said that the issue of rooting out corruption at the administrative level is not going to stop. It's still actively going on, and you're really corroborating that it's actively going on against you until somebody goes to prison and people are fired, that there's actually tangible action taken, that number one, the American people can see, number two, the veterans to restore some kind of faith and integrity in that system where they're going for health care, and then thirdly, so your colleagues that you work with as well feel like their backs are covered. How long do you see if it took a national urgency to move the scheduling issue and it took a resilience on the part of the chairman and the ranking member to really go after this issue and try to reset it, how long do you see, even if we keep pressure up, even if a new VA secretary comes in, if we don't root out the corruption, new VA secretary won't be any more successful than Shinseki was. How long do you see it's going to take to turn this around if we keep up the same amount of pressure?
I'm not sure I'm in the best position to judge that. What I do know is that the media paid attention to the scheduling issues, and all of a sudden I get consults completed within 10 minutes. The media needs to pay attention to the lack of ethics issue, and maybe we'll get the same turnaround.
And Mr. Davis, just quickly.
Yes, I want to say that I think we've got to do two things. I think, first of all, we do need a separate group to look at VA, because as you alluded to, when the new secretary comes in,
Yeah.
he or she, whoever finally gets approved by the Senate, will have to deal with the health care issue first. They're probably not going to have time to become the chief of police for VA and also make the health care reforms. So you're going to need some assistance, even if it's a sunshine law where this operating authority only acts for a period of years until you get VA under control. The next thing you have to look at performance standards for leadership. Unlike those of my colleagues who work at medical facilities, they may have some legitimate reasons for their challenges in terms of dealing with their leadership group. In our organization, our primary function is to enroll veterans into health care. We stirred that away to the ACA project, and this is not about the politics of the law. This is about VA having a public affairs division here in D.C., a National Veteran Outreach office here in D.C., a health system communication office here in D.C., and that project was sent down to Atlanta for the sole purpose of a senior executive reaching a performance goal. It had nothing to do with our core business. I go back to a previous point I make, why you need an outside agency to look at this. We have, again, 600,000, and that rivals the number of people who actually enroll in VA in a given year. So imagine a year's worth of applications just sitting in a pending status. Put this in context if we were talking about a bank. 600,000 deposits go in on Monday. We never hear about them for another year or two. Do you think the walls on that bank would still be standing here today? Yet the men and women who sacrifice for this country have to deal with this. And why? Not because we don't have the resources, because we focus on ACA, we focus on the Veteran Dental Insurance Program, we create marketing materials for Delta Dental and MetLife, yet we could put these same little flyers in a post office, in a grocery store, to let people know, hey, if you had a pending application in VA through years 2000 and 2014, contact such and such number. The same effort we put in getting senior leadership bonuses and the same interest we put in attaching ourselves to high-profile projects is what's the same amount of attention that needs to go to veterans. So I encourage you guys, if nothing else, please make sure that we move to a system that has more data integrity. Require the people who come here and sit on these panels to sign off on the information they turn into Congress. This way, when they come back, they can't say that report was done by somebody else. That's the only way. Hold them accountable and do it in public and do it while the cameras are on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jolly, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr.